Sometimes all you need is one lead journalist from a very big publication to spearhead this campaign for you. And then everybody just follows suits. It's more about the relationship building and finding the really relevant person who's already covered your topic or category that could deliver an actual story.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in. All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Yoav Shalev, the CMO over at Tap with us. Yoav, great to have you on. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you on today. Can you tell us a little about Tap? What do you guys do over there?
So we've developed a wearable controller that allows anyone to input into any device using finger taps and different gestures. First and foremost, it's for people wearing different smart glasses or headphones, just walking about and want to control their audio, or people who want to easily scroll through content or type into devices. It's actually a pretty cool device.
That's amazing. One of the things that really stood out to me about Tap is, and I think a lot of this spans throughout your entire career, even before Tap, but you guys have done a phenomenal job getting press for the business. I want to talk a bit about how to actually do a proper product launch, how to get press, but let's start out with press specifically for Tap. What did you do ultimately that led to you getting featured in so many massive publications?
So very early on, when we did the launch of the company and the announcement, we actually crafted a story. It was very novel at the time. It still kind of is, of being able to control anything just by tapping on any surface, or even your head or body, whatever it may be. So the story and the release was crafted really, really well. We also secured a few kind of interviews or stories under embargo. And then we timed the launch so that everything goes out at the same time. Like all the stories just release. And then as soon as the stories were out, I started circulating them in different content ad networks for exposure. But the people that I was actually targeting were the PR and blogger community itself. So I wasn't really targeting the end consumers, but rather targeting the professionals who could carry the story further, the heavy lifters and the amplifiers of the story. So that kind of created that, coupled with, retargeting and also some social media work. It created this feeling that everybody's talking about Tap right now, that there's all these different publications. So everybody followed suit and started covering it. One, because the story was good, and two, because everybody else was doing it. So it was kind of creating and manufacturing the herd effect and FOMO and leveraging that against, I'm calling it against, but it's like with the media, so that they take the story and share it further.
And I love the way you put it, of putting the emphasis on those amplifiers. It's a very unique approach to, call it, promotion of a new brand. And I love the way that you've approached that. It sounds like the big focus has been, let's try and get in front of a couple of journalists rather than get in front of thousands of potential customers, knowing that these journalists are going to be able to amplify the message to a much larger audience.
Yeah. Another thing, we did kind of a wait list where people actually get ahead of the wait list or the top. If the more they share, the more other subscribers that they bring in. So all of this combined, I think, was very helpful. So the consumers knew exactly what they need to do, and the press knew exactly what they need to do. It was kind of a very clear ask from each kind of user.
So I want to dig into a couple of the different components of this in particular.
Sure.
Let's start out with the press side of things. First of all, how do you go about finding what sounds like was initially a smaller set of journalists that you set up the embargo with, give them the exclusive story? How do you go about finding a really good set of journalists that you can reach out to?
So, this was back in 2016, but I've done it time and time again. First and foremost, I look for people who have already covered similar technologies or that are covering the similar type of space. So if they have already written a story in the space, they have some sort of affinity or some sort of desire to cover it. So, that makes it a lot more relevant to reach out to them. then make a list. Now there's AI tools. You can make this really, really quickly. And it could be also influencers. It doesn't necessarily have to be journalists, but people who are specifically talking about the industry or the competitor product or maybe your product category, because you know that they are already familiar with it. It's not something that you need to sell them on a new kind of novel solution that they've never heard of it before. Once you have that, reach out to them personally and try to get them engaged and tell them why it's interesting. Try to set up a meeting, like an actual interview, to pitch them and give them the whole spiel and coordinate the launch date with them so they know that they get the scoop and what's expected and when it's going to go live and when the wire is going to drop and all that. It's very genuine. I mean, at the end of the day, reporters are just people. Their job is to report and they're constantly looking for good stories. So if you have a good story to share with them, you're actually doing them a service, especially if it's well crafted. And it's like, we've had stories that we've pitched and given to journalists that they literally copy pasted without editing anything. And they're just like, oh, thanks, great. And they take the credit for it. Great. At the end of the day, you get your story published. They're happy because they get new content and something new to share. So it's a win-win.
Struggling to get new customers? We're here to help. Hey, this is Pat, the host of Customer Growth Sessions. Our agency, Intergrowth, has been helping e-commerce brands like Bella Bridesmaids, Brevity, and JS Dental to get more customers online since 2016. Interested in seeing how we'd help you? Head over to intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary consultation with me. That's intergrowth.com/CGS. All right, back to the show. So, Yoav, that's brilliant. Within that, how do you go about finding these actual journalists, at scale, let's say? You mentioned AI coming into play, but would love to better understand what that process looks like.
Yeah, so now there are different tools that can do research and find you influencers and journalists. Particularly when I look to partner or work with someone like that, I look for someone who's already covered and published an article or a post in the space that I know for sure are in the mindset of covering this topic, whatever it may be. And then it's also a good point of reference because you can see what kind of sentiment they're covering the topic. Are they advocates or not? And then craft a really good story that they can literally copy paste and publish. And once you have that story ready, then you go and pitch them and reach out to them personally and try to see if you can get a meeting set up or a call or whatever, so that you can show them what you got, give them a demo, a tour. If you need to send them products so they can test it and try it out. And then hand them the story so that they can literally copy paste and change it if they wanted to. But if not, then they can fall back on something. And then have them coordinate the time where you want it to be published, understanding that it's maybe they're going to have preference like an hour or two before everybody else to publish or whatever it may be. But yeah, it's literally try to think like them, like what does their day look like? What are they looking for? And they have deadlines as journalists of when they can get a piece up. And they have priorities. Each magazine has their own calendar and priorities and all that. But if it's newsworthy, they'll just drop you into the news and sometimes the homepage if it's that exciting.
So a couple follow-ups within there. One, if I'm planning a big PR campaign like this, and let's say I have plans to reach out to a couple dozen different journalists, what's your recommendation about a good span of time in advance to plan that out? Let's say, right here, we're recording, call it beginning of May. Let's say I'm looking to get a big press feature, sometime around December. Should I start today? Should I start November 1st? What are your thoughts there?
No more than 10 days before.
Really? That tight of a deadline? That's fascinating.
Yeah. Because people tend to forget and they just don't care. Like if it's happening in December, so many things can go and happen between now and December. You're talking about like lots of macro level stuff, whether it's the tariffs or wars or economy. There's just so many variables. So I think when you approach a journalist and tell them, hey, we're launching next week, it's very actionable. They're in the news. Their job is to cover what's happening now, not what's happening in the future. So the shorter the time span, the more FOMO that you can actually generate around it, especially if you have something big to announce. And there's another approach of doing leaks of like, hey, we're going to drop this. But then you're not embargoing those leaks. You're just letting them spread some rumors throughout the year. Another thing that I like doing is adding a lot of journalists to my LinkedIn community or as contacts, just so that if I have something interesting to share, they'll see it. And it's always keeping my content top of mind for them. So literally, if you think about it, like your number one customers should be your amplifiers, like the people who can help you go to market faster, essentially. If you're trying always to sell to the end user, you may succeed, but it's going to go a lot faster and a lot farther than you can do on your own if you harness the power of these amplifiers. It could be journalists, it could be bloggers, podcasters, social media influencers, micro-influencers, it doesn't matter. Anyone with an audience that's relevant could help you get further, quicker in front of people.
Brilliant. I love that about really limiting that time window so much and going with 10 days. As you said, leverage FOMO as much as possible, really force them into action as quickly as possible. So when you're reaching out to journalists, have you found on the story side of things that there are certain variables that tend to resonate more so than others to really get them to decide to pick up a story?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the type of journalist. But first of all, they love numbers. Anything that's financial or users or growth, something that they can quote with numbers is a big attraction. Everybody or people are interested in numbers, I guess. So if you have something new to share, like a milestone, a breakthrough, it's newsworthy. Something big, something that a new concept is newsworthy. Like features and stuff, nobody cares about that. It's like incremental improvements, good for you, but like it's not newsworthy. How you're changing like a market is newsworthy. Another thing that's newsworthy is pulling in a lot of user stories. So people care about people at the end of the day. If you look at like Google at any given moment, the number one search result are people's names. Like in the Google Trends, if you go and see like anywhere between 50 to 80% of searches is people's names. First and foremost, before products or services, people are genuinely interested in other people. So if you can feed the journalists with use cases and stories of how you've impacted people and how it's changed their lives, that's very, very powerful. And they love to share because at the end of the day, that's a story that they can sell to their audience. First of all, to the editors, but then to the audience. But people, you need to place yourself like in their eyes. What do they care about? Like, what are they tracking towards in terms of their KPIs and what their goals and metrics are? So if you align yourself with what they need to deliver, you have a much higher chance of actually getting them to do what you want them to do.
So let's move to the next phase. If you want to do things, let's say you want to go all out for a PR campaign, do you have a general recommendation for maybe a rough number of journalists you should reach out to? Whether it's like, hey, aim to reach out to 50 people or aim to reach out to like 500 journalists. Any thoughts there?
It's not so much about the number for that. So it's more about the quality, the relevancy. Sometimes all you need is one lead journalist from a very big publication to spearhead this campaign for you. And then everybody just follows suits. It's more about the relationship building and finding the really relevant person who's already covered your topic or category that could deliver an actual story. And that they're high enough, like they're not a contributor, they're actually working for the publication. If they're an editor, that's even better. Someone who can actually place it, and that it's a big publication. If you get that, then you should be good. So I would actually work more with a smaller, like, yeah, you can harvest 500 or 2,000 and just blanket email everybody. But if you really want someone to lead, to be the lead reporter on your story, do whatever in your capacity. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, but it shouldn't be more than that. You don't necessarily need to do more than that. If you actually do more than that, then you risk diluting and not giving the exclusive, kind of scoop or whatever to any particular one. And more often than not, they're going to ask like, okay, who else has run this? Or when did this run? And if it's large enough, and if you can tell them, hey, someone else is running this, then they feel more confident of running it as well.
People ask me all the time, should I be using ChatGPT to create content for my site? So here's the thing. AI is great at quickly spitting out blog content. It's also great at pissing off your following. If you've spent years building your brand and follower base, why would you risk that all with AI-generated content? At Intergrowth, we work with companies that see their brand as an asset to get more customers through human-crafted articles that your customers look for online. We master your brand voice and work with your team to write the best articles on the internet that bring you customers on autopilot from search engines like Google. Interested in hearing more? Reach out to us at intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary strategy session with our team. So let's say you found like your 1 to 2 lead journalists that are going to really going to lead the charge for this PR campaign. Talk to me about the next stage of the process. We'll work with that December timeline. So we know like, hey, December 1st, we're going to have these 2 big journalists that are going to run this story about this new brand we're launching. What should be the next step that I'm really doing to prepare for this campaign?
Prepare the story. Make sure that it's as good as you can make it. Make sure that the landing page or wherever, like, what's the call to action from the story? Is it to join a list or to buy something or sign up or whatever? Make sure that your landing page is super clear and easy for people to understand what you're expecting them to do. And then start working on the second tier. And those are like not the lead reporters, but all the other influencers and all the other affiliates, all the other social media posts that you want to go out and blast at the same time. And the social posts that the entrepreneur and his team that are going to put out in real time. And then the follow-up sequences of not just emails, but like the actual social media account of how you're going to leverage stories that have been published and just thank the journalists for covering. And kind of does 2 things. One, it's really acknowledging them for taking the time to share your story. But 2, it shows everybody else that someone's covering it. And then start driving traffic to those posts on social media so people see. It's like leveraging a third-party validation, social proof that you're being covered, that someone cares, that there's a story here. You're just using that ammo, squeezing, that lemon as much and as hard as you can.
And with this second tier, so my assumption would be this would be a little more of a numbers game in your eyes, that this is a little bit more focused on, as long as they're relevant opportunities, see how you can get in front of as many people as possible. First of all, would you agree with that, or am I totally off base?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, they have to remain relevant. You can't really be pitching to someone who's not in your space. It's just not going to be helpful. And it's also, you have to consider like the publication itself and who's the audience of the publication. So it's not enough that, let's put it this way, if you're in tech, getting a story up on Bloomberg or CNN is nice and it's a wider net, but getting into a very niche or somewhat more category appropriate publication such as PC Magazine or CNET might be high relevant from the audience perspective. The audience might even interact and find your story more appealing. The other thing that I'd mention is timing. Launching anything in December is not recommended. Simply because people and the journalists themselves, because they're also people are not in that headspace. They're preparing their gift list or whatever. I'm talking about like US specific. Yeah, every country has their own kind of culture, but you should time it in such a way that it doesn't like coincide with any holiday or any big kind of seasonal mindset. And that's my experience, is that if you're too close to the holidays, people just won't care. Unless it's something that's highly relevant for holidays, like some crazy gift or service or whatever it may be.
So one of the items I wanted to dive into within the broad realm of PR is, and this is something, if I remember correctly, you've rolled out specifically for TAP. Talk to me a little about how you've used paid ads in order to get in front of journalists.
Yeah, so this tactic is pretty simple. I mean, once you have, and it was true for 2016. I don't know how you Yeah, I mean, you could do it now with more targeting, but essentially the ads that you want to run, what I did is I had a big CSV of reporters and their emails, and I could load them into Ads Manager so that I could create a custom audience and literally target only those people. Now you can add like other types of people who self-identify themselves as under a job title, like podcasters or journalists or whatever within your specific space, but run the ads to them. And the ads, what I would run is not necessarily my product ads, but it would be posts of me thanking other journalists for posting about us. So if I'm a journalist and I'm doom scrolling and all of a sudden I see a post from a company of another journalist covering this, I would want to see what the hell's going on. Like, what's that story? Why is someone covering this? How recent is this? And if I see that, oh, wow, it's really recent, there's an opportunity to jump on board and also amplify and share this story. So they typically do that. And it wasn't just Facebook. I did that on multiple different platforms at the same time. So using Google and also retargeting and Taboola and Reddit and some ad networks. It was a really consolidated effort to sell that story and use other people's stories to kind of create this herd effect and to get people to share.
Wow, I love that. So going back to one of the things you shared before, pretty close to the top was I heard really two core facets. One being getting in front of journalists, two being to leverage. I perceived it as like leveraging the network of potential customers to refer other individuals to move higher in the waiting list. And I'm curious, tech changes over time, but what tools do you recommend in order to run this second half of the equation, the waitlist component where you move up in the waitlist if you refer others?
Honestly, there are plenty of plugins that would do this now. I don't have any particular one to recommend. It's so simple that you can probably have any GPT create that for you. It's a very simple mechanism. Just be sure that you can then take that list and email them or use them as an audience that you then retarget.
And I think I saw that for the first time, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Robinhood in 2014, 2015, because they got me hooked on that. And I probably referred a dozen friends so that I could get early access to Robinhood. And I think that's such a brilliant way to approach things.
Yeah. So we did this in 2016. Well, yeah, I mean, it's been around. We didn't invent it. I was using an off-the-shelf tool. I just don't remember what it was called, waitlisted or something like that. I just don't remember if it exists anymore. But yeah, I mean, trends are cyclical. So what worked 10 years ago may have worked another 20 and 30 years ago. It's like people are constantly looking for new stimulants, but if you fall on and you just repackage an old stimulant, it should work. It's not that sophisticated. Simplicity wins all the time, every time.
Oh, definitely. I love this. Really challenging question I want to throw your way is talking about how to anticipate, I'm going to broadly say like resource allocation that would go into a great PR campaign. High level, two ways you could approach it. One, you hire an outside expert. Two, you put a lot of man hours into doing it on your own. Do you have any good benchmarks you could offer in terms of what to expect to allocate to run like a true PR campaign correctly?
So the video alone costs like 30 grand to produce. The materials and the creative and then the actual ad spend was like 20 or 30K. And that does not include any of my fees or the other talents' fees. And then their outreach and everything, it was not cheap. Like planning this launch was not cheap, but it was effective. Now it's also incrementally cheaper to do it with AI. So, I mean, I think the question shouldn't be about like the price because that varies. It should be more of like how much time are you willing to spend and how committed you are in order to do a launch properly. Because it takes about a month and a half to plan it correctly and then to execute it, just hammer everything to do it right. With the outreach piece of it, of getting in front of the reporters, that's like the last part of the execution or prior to the actual launch date. And then once it's launched, then you start the real work of, okay, how do we amplify this and stay top of mind and get more and more coverage. So I think that would be a better way to look at this from a time standpoint, especially now because there's all these AI tools that can do the pitching for you and that can create the video and the content and the press release and all that stuff. There are some hard costs of like doing a wire blast, whatever it costs now, if it's $500 or $700 or whatever it may be. Otherwise, it's really about like the personnel that you find. If it's going to be a PR team that pitches on your behalf, or if you're going to do it alone, it varies. What I've found, and I've worked with multiple PR agencies, is that they are as only good as their contacts. They will typically hold a Rolodex of established relationships that they have, and even those are not very well maintained typically. So when they will not really do any kind of outreach successfully to new prospects, it's very unlikely. Plus, many reporters are happy and interested in hearing the founder and what they have to say and carrying the story. So if there's someone on the team that can coordinate the actual discussion between the reporter and the founder or the head of the launch, that may get you better wins than just having someone blanket email, because they get blanket emails all day long. It's just not personal. It's not interesting.
So talk to me a little about maybe the time that I should expect to put in to roll out a successful PR campaign.
Like as a program manager, about a month and a half, I think. And that's just your time. And then you need to learn how to activate other people, because you need a video produced and you need some collateral and you need the story. So there's plenty of AI tools that could do a pretty good job, not a phenomenal job, but a pretty good one in producing most of this collateral. But if you want it done right, then you need someone to write and craft the story pretty well and then be able to formulate it into the multiple different content types. So telling the story through a written post is very different than telling it through an audiovisual kind of medium, whether it's podcast or video. And sometimes the video will be with subtitles or with audio. It's just, there's many different factors. I recommend if you can deliver a story that does not need an audio element to it, like a video story that doesn't need an audio, that will go the furthest for two reasons. One, a lot of people watch videos muted. So if they can understand, if you are able to articulate your point through visuals solely and you do it well enough, then people will understand and not rely on actually someone explaining it to them. That's one. Two, the least titles on the actual footage makes it possible for other publications to grab your story, your video, repackage them, put whatever titles they want, and then share that video with their audience. So you're actually like feeding them with high quality B-roll to craft a new story from your story and then share it. So however long that takes you, if it's a week, 2, 5, I would plan for at least a month and a half in advance to craft, to give you sufficient time to work on all these different parts so that when you go to launch day, you know that you've armed your amplifiers with the best possible kind of ammo or content that they can share.
Brilliant. Yoav, this has been amazing. Before we let you go, first, where can listeners go to buy Tap With Us? Let's start there.
Tapwithus.com.
I love it. Nice and easy.
Or go to Amazon and just search for Tap With Us and you'll find our product.
What about for listeners that want to learn more from your insights? Where should they go to follow you?
They could go to yoavshalev.com. It will redirect you to my bio links, and then there's links there where you can learn about all the different products that I'm involved in and my social media and all that stuff.
I love it. I love it. And listeners, check out the show notes. We'll have a link to the Tap site. We'll also have a link to a couple of the projects that Yoav's working on outside of Tap. But once again, listeners, this is Yoav Shalev, the CMO over at Tap With Us. Yoav, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.